there all. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Nina Carlson with Northwest Natural and president of Clackamas County Business Alliance. Thank you very much for joining us to hear the commissioners debate today. We have Commissioner Ken Humberston, former U.S. Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, and he has a background in law enforcement. He's been a school teacher, a firefighter, very committed to community service. And we have his opponent, Mark Schull, who is a retired military officer who had a small business, custom home design business, and he's retired from that. Both of them are stepping it up to serve the community of Clackamas County, and we really thank them for joining us here today to talk about their vision for the county going forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Nellie, but thank you all for joining us and for your support.
Thank you so much, Nina. Appreciate your support through all this. It's been quite the year. It's definitely not been the easiest year to be president of the CCBA, so I appreciate your support. And with that,
and we just wanted to set one bit of, we are not mentioning murder hornets or Yellowstone supervolcanoes in this debate. That's the only parameter we're putting on this.
Okay.
yes, 2020 for the win on that front. Okay, thank you so much, Nina. All right, gentlemen, well, let's get started. I appreciate you both for being here and taking some time to join CCBA in our ownership or membership, one of those things. Anyway, I'd like to give you both an opportunity to kick off the conversation with introductions, 2 minutes each. Commissioner Humberston, would you like to start?
As you wish, fine. Well, thank you very much for having us. I have had the pleasure of serving Clackamas County now for 4 years as county commissioner, and prior to that, the Clackamas River Water Board, where there were some interesting problems that we were able to resolve. My experience in politics goes back a long ways. I have served on a planning commission, water board, fire board, school board, economic development commissions in a variety of locations. And so I bring I think a wealth of experience in how government works to the table. That's been beneficial over the last 4 years in some of the accomplishments that we've been able to do. You probably have heard me talk about cross-laminated timber, and after a lot of hard work, we have brought a company to Clackamas County who will be building a facility in Estacada that will be processing cross-laminated timber. We built a veterans village that has now gotten 22 veterans into permanent supported housing, and we have about 19 or 20 there currently. It's a model that we saw in Lane County that we liked, and that we were able to adopt here in Clackamas County, and it's now becoming a model around the state. We have managed to take 200 pages of rules and regulations out of our county planning and development codes, streamlining the bureaucracy considerably, and now our whole system is almost entirely online, so a builder can do most of the work that he needs to do in terms of the paperwork on an online system. We were able to do that in about 2 weeks and put that together. There are jurisdictions that have literally taken years to put that together and spent millions of dollars. Working together as a team and working with our local agencies has benefited Clackamas County. We don't get in fights, if we can avoid it, with our cities or with Metro or neighboring counties or our state legislature. Instead, we work together with them, and that has benefited us financially as a county. And Nellie, you look like you were going to stop me.
Thank you. That's your 2 minutes. I appreciate it.
Okay.
With that, I'll turn the microphone over to Mark.
Yes. Good morning. A little in way of background, after graduating from Barlow High School, I spent some time in the woods as a logger here in Oregon, and then graduated from Oregon State University, went on, was commissioned in the Marine Corps, spent a career in the military, spent some time as a president of Schull Design and Development, designing and building custom homes. So I've owned property in Clackamas County since 1981, and my family grew up here. My 2 boys still live in the area. So we really love Clackamas County and see the great potential in this county. Um, in the last 5 years or so, I've been a precinct committee person, House District Captain, alternate chair of 3rd Congressional District. But over the last, decade, we've seen increasing concern here in the county about the direction of the county. And residents feel that the quality of life has become compromised compared to what it was just a few decades ago. And we've watched commutes become longer, roads become unimproved with no new arterial lanes, taxes and fees and regulations have increased. Housing has become less affordable, and we've seen some unnecessary spending, not just in the county, but in the state as well. So, and we've also seen agendas and special interests outside the county often take precedence over the concerns of our 430,000 citizens. So with that, I decided to run for county commissioner, and it's my intent to support the people and the businesses of this county and try to steer the county back to a course heading that is going to be more in line with what the people of the county want. Thanks, Nellie.
Perfect timing. Thank you both. With that, we'll kind of alternate between the two of you. Start with another 2 minutes. This time we'll have Mark go first. First question, what are the top 2 priorities you'll be pursuing in this position, and what specific actions will you be taking to achieve them?
Okay. These are 2 general priorities that I want to work on. The first one is restoring autonomy in Clackamas County. Currently, many of our people and the businesses in the county feel that they are not in control, and they feel disconnected from the county government. They see too much focus on special interests and metro and not enough on their own needs and desires. And so in every decision as a county commissioner, I'm going to look at business, I'm going to look at families, and I'm going to see what their needs are, and their interests will come first and foremost in any decisions I make. The next thing is to actively fight against any new unnecessary regulations, taxes, and fees. The current commission, many of them, are more about solving problems with tax dollars. And what I want to do is work with people in business to solve our problems in the county with free enterprise and individual initiatives. Government solutions are expensive, and free enterprise solutions build wealth and don't waste wealth. And finally, on that, I like to say that we need to examine ways to achieve our goals without continuing to lean on the taxpayer and business to fund everything. And business and families in Clackamas County are not ATMs for government. Thanks, Nellie.
Thank you so much. With that, I'll repeat the question, Commissioner Hubbardson. What are the top 2 priorities you'll be pursuing in this position, and what specific actions will you be taking to achieve them?
Well, economic development is one of the areas that I've been focusing on, particularly job creation. So as you're probably aware, I have been working on the CLT initiative. It's my opinion that we should be a hub for that industry here in Clackamas County. We have the mills, we have the wood source, we have the markets, and we have the intellectual property that makes that industry work, either in the county or right next door. And we've taken the first step in doing that. I want to make sure that we have high-speed internet for every home and business in Clackamas County, which we currently do not have. And I'm willing to do that whether we do it with our CBX system, where we're saving the taxpayers $1.5 million a year currently, or partnering with the private enterprise companies that will partner with us. If we're going to be competitive in the 21st century, it is crucial that we have that service. And quite frankly, COVID, if there's any bright spot at all, it has demonstrated clearly how important high-speed internet is for distance learning and healthcare and business recruitment and development. The third is a land bank authority. I want to make sure that we take our old industrial properties, clean them up, make them available for new family wage jobs. And that is a crucial aspect of what I approach, because the housing issue is a legitimate issue, but a big part of that problem is low wage economy that we have built. We're going to have to pay people a living wage, like Teddy Roosevelt said 120 years ago, if people are going to be able to afford a home. The last priority that I've been working on is in law enforcement. We have 63 deputies for patrol in Clackamas County. 63. If you divide that into 3 shifts, that's 21 deputies a shift for the entire county. If you have people that are out sick, in training, vacancies, or in court, all of a sudden you can find yourself in a situation where there's a single deputy from Mount Hood to Damascus. That's insufficient coverage. So I want to make sure that we figure out a way to put more boots on the ground here in Clackamas County and make sure our rural communities have a sufficient amount of law enforcement protection. And I can tell that my time is up.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Sorry, I know 2 minutes is hard. The next question, what do you feel the county, and this is directed to you, Commissioner, first, what do you feel the county does really well, and what specific program do you think is most in need of improvement?
Well, I think our Department of Transportation and Development does a particularly good job with the resources that they've had. And as you're probably aware, we gave them more resources by passing a vehicle registration fee, which is $30 a year per vehicle. We were $300 million behind. We asked the taxpayers 7 times since 1986, and they said no. Well, at some point in time, you have to make the responsible decision. And the responsible decision was to raise those fees, get the money necessary to repair the roads. So I believe that department does an exceptional job, and there's 25 new projects on the books that are being worked on as we speak as a result of that VRF. It is always nice to say that we won't raise taxes, but it's irresponsible. Sometimes it is necessary. It's not a piggy bank, I understand that, but you do have the responsibility of making sure that the infrastructure that we have is passed on to the next generation appropriately. The other area that I'd like to invest more money is in economic development, in particularly international business recruiting. We do about $30 billion a year of business with international companies, about $6.2 billion a year right here. And that we have in Oregon about a $2 billion surplus just with China of that $6 billion. We're one of 2 states in the whole country that actually had a surplus with China. International trade is crucial. We are on the West Coast, where international trade is to our benefit, and we are the, if you will, unsung state of the 3 states on the West Coast. There's tremendous opportunity for us and our workers and our businesses to have industries that are active on the international stage and continue to develop our economy. We did start with $75,000, which is about a half a person for international trade and outreach. I want to increase that because I think that's the direction we need to go for our business communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Moving on to Mark, what do you feel the county does really well, and what specific program do you think is most in need of improvement?
Mm-hmm. Well, doing well, I got to say, public safety. You know, everybody in the county is very proud of the job our public safety departments are doing. We saw great work done by our fire chief and his people during these fires. Our sheriff department has been recognized more than once for outstanding performance. And I want to see our public safety people well-funded and supported. And I never want to see or allow the Multnomah County mayhem to creep into Clackamas County. So that's going to take a very strong 24/7, 365 public safety focus, and to ensure law and order is always maintained in Clackamas County. That's very important. What needs to be improved? As you might already know, I have a big concern about the cost of housing in Clackamas County, especially for our young people who are trying to save money to buy a home for the first time. So our building department, they do a great job, but here's the problem that needs to be fixed or improved. If you want to build a house, say 2,500 square feet in a county, your building permits on that house are going to probably most likely be around $3,500. But to get out of the to get your permit issued, you're going to need to come up with about $35,000. And here's the difference between your actual building permit and what it costs to actually get it issued to you to start construction is all those add-ons that we've seen for all sorts of different costs. And that needs to be fixed because now just getting to the point where you can actually get your permit done and start construction is really difficult. So I'd like to see that improved. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll, Mark, have you start the next question. What things would you like to see the county pursue to help businesses get through the virus-imposed recession?
Well, the first thing is business, what it needs is just to be unencumbered by these the governor's mandates for locking down first the stay home thing and then the reduced ability to have people in your business. So we need to get rid of that. I understand COVID is a problem, but I don't want to have the what we're doing to try to fight COVID be more of a problem than the COVID itself. One of the things I like to see too that we can do easily is to mitigate the COVID issue to get businesses back to full production is look at these HEPA filters with ultraviolet air cleaners in public spaces that could make it much more safe for people to be in higher concentrations. And finally, I like to see less restrictions, less regulations on business, so they're free to operate with a totally unencumbered environment. And finally, we need to keep our eye on state and federal programs that are meant to help businesses recover, to make sure our businesses in Clackamas County are getting a fair shake.
Thank you. With that, Commissioner, what things would you like to see the county pursue to help businesses get through the virus-imposed recession?
Well, in the short term, obviously, funding, capital infusions are necessary. We have done about $450,000 worth of grants for small businesses, and we now have about $1 million from the CARES funding that's going to be made available within the next few weeks for businesses to get a cash infusion. They will be able to apply online for those funds. Because of the fires, we have a facility down in Malala right now to help people who have been impacted by the fires get all the services they need there. And just so that people are aware, if they had their house burned down or buildings burned down, FEMA will pay for the toxic waste removal if you sign up before October 16th. So I hope people that are listening to this will get either online or go down to Malala and take care of that, because they can get that done for free. I also would like to see the county actually be able to do a small business development revolving fund system. That's a longer term approach to help small businesses than the immediate one of a cash infusion. But I think that's one way to help economic development in our community. But it will require us to put some money aside over time and develop that fund. I think that's possible through the Land Bank Authority approach. So if I am reelected, I expect to continue to pursue, that's the word I was looking for. I expect to pursue that option also.
Wonderful. Thank you both. With this, we'll start with the commissioner on the next question. What are the biggest ways your platform is different than your opponents?
Well, probably the only real, I don't know too much, quite frankly, about my opponent's specific platform. And I tend to be a lot more specific than general in the way I approach things. But the one comment that I have seen that I believe he has made is that he would never raise taxes without a vote of the people. And I will be very candid about that. I consider that fiscally irresponsible. One does not know what is coming down the pike. And at some point in time, regardless of what the public may personally like, there are decisions that you are elected to make that sometimes are difficult, they're unpleasant, and they take money out of all of our pockets sometimes. But again, the responsibility to preserving the infrastructure of this county is crucial because everything else is dependent upon it. If you want a police officer to show at your house, he needs a road. If you want the fire department there, they need a road. If you want an ambulance there, they need a road. If you want to go to work, you need a road. If you want food at your grocery store, you need a road. And if the voters don't give you the money you need voluntarily, maybe you have to make a tough decision. Pass a VRF and make sure that you don't fall behind in your road maintenance. We have more road miles than any county in this state. We are very dependent upon it. 70% of our workforce leaves this county to go to work. Without good roads, they can't do that. So I suspect that that one particular issue is a major difference between the two of us, because sometimes people just don't want to have more money taken out of their pockets, but it may be necessary.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Mark Scholl. What are the biggest ways your platform is different than your opponents?
Well, Nellie, I believe that the county government is responsible to the will of the people. It's not that the people are responsible to the will of government. My opponent leans towards more expensive government solutions to county problems. And I am dedicated to independent free market solutions that come from the initiative of the people. And I know that business can do things quickly and economically, while government solutions are expensive, they're time consuming at best. And my opponent, although he's very loyal to his beliefs, he does focus on regional metro solutions, and he needs to focus more on the people and their needs of the county. There's 430,000 people in the county, and every one of them, I feel, I have a responsibility to. I have no responsibility to Metro or Governor Brown or Wyden or Merkley, and I want businesses in this county to feel free and unburdened by regulations as much as possible, to include taxes and fees. And business leaders I talk to in the county right now, they're worried. And many of them are looking at moving out of state. Why? Because there's other places that are more conducive to running a business than Clackamas County is right now. And I don't want to lose one business in this county. Our workers depend on it. Our jobs depend on it. And so I will not allow people of this county to be held hostage by anything, no Metro or no outside special interests. I'm just going to take care of the people of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin with you on the next question, Mark. Are there certain taxes or fees that you believe should be cut or eliminated? And if yes, what should happen to the programs that the revenue is funding?
Okay, Nellie. Well, I've already mentioned that one of the things that I want to see fixed is this, the high cost of getting out of the building department with your building permit to build a house. And it's even worse for commercial projects. They're even more expensive. I want to see that fixed. I'm open to looking at any other ideas that will reduce the burden on our people to be able to afford to build a house or commercial projects to be built. And one of the things that has stuck in the craw of the people, we just heard the commissioner speak about it, but it's the vehicle registration fee. And here's the rub. It's not that it was such a large fee, it's $60 every 2 years. But what happened was after the people voted it down and then it was implemented anyway, that caused a lot of resentment. So I'm willing, if that comes up next year, I'm willing to look at that and look at what monies are coming from the vehicle registration fee now and see how we can readjust the budget to eliminate that. But once again, I defer to the will of the people. The other thing too that I think we should look at now is there's a idea being kicked around about the temporary room tax. If this is not if there's ever a year where a new tax is just not appropriate, it's 2020. So I like to see that tax tabled. And like any reduction in any tax or fee, we have to go back and look at the entire county administration to see how we can readjust the budget to accommodate the reduction of a fee or tax. So those are some things I think we should look at.
Thank you. Oh, trying to get the timer to stop there. Not so good at multitasking today. With that, Commissioner, we'll go to the final question before opening up to the public. I would encourage the public to use either the chat feature or the Q&A feature, and we will go through your questions next. Commissioner, again, the question, are there certain taxes or fees that you believe should be cut or eliminated? And if yes, what should happen to the programs that revenue is funding?
Well, to be blunt, the answer to the question is no. We have cut $18 million from our general fund budget, and we did that over the last 2 years, and we're able to do that without laying people off. We did cut one program. It was a juvenile program that was not being participated in by very many kids. So we did cut that program and repurpose those funds where the needs were greater. You know, somebody who is very interested in law enforcement may not be particularly interested in roads, or somebody who's interested in the social services needs of people with mental or emotional problems may not be particularly interested in roads, but every one of them is a constituency that is interested in what county government does. So I'm going to give a quick and what I call a quick and dirty budget 101. We have a $1.2 billion budget. We are the executive boards for eight different government groups. Okay, of that $1.2 billion, $145 million of it is our general fund budget. 70%, excuse me, $70 million of that goes to the sheriff's department. 10% of that goes to the district attorney's office. 8% goes to health, housing, and human services, and the rest is about 2% that's divided amongst, or 2% increments divided amongst other agencies. The bulk of our funds come from for very specific uses from the state or the federal government. It is not a bucket of $1.2 billion that we get to play with any old way we want to. In fact, of your property tax dollar, the county gets 18.63 cents. All the rest goes to other government agencies, and we are simply the collection agency for those funds. As far as the costs for housing is concerned, SDCs, I believe is what Mr. Shull is referring to. Many of those are imposed by special districts, not by the county. And that's how they keep their infrastructure up to date. Now, we are doing one thing that will help the builders, and that is that we're now allowing for monthly payments on fees. The other thing that I'm pursuing right now, and I think we will be able to do, is instead of having to fund all of the fees up front for a project, let's suppose you have 100 houses being built by a company, and the SDCs and fees and everything are $35,000 a house. That's millions of dollars that the company has to float and pay interest on. My feeling is from the county's point of view of making sure that the infrastructure needs of all of these districts in the county are taken care of, we can collect that money at point of sale. That means that the company that is building these buildings does not have to pay the interest. That can help reduce costs. And that's just one idea that we have that we are working on to help reduce the cost of housing. But in the final analysis, I'm going to reiterate something I said at the beginning of our meeting today, and that is we have built a national economy based on paying as cheap a wage as we can get away with in way too many businesses and industries. And Teddy Roosevelt said 120 years ago, a man should be able to work 8 hours a day and support his family, have 8 hours of rest and 8 hours to give to his community. You cannot do that on minimum wage. You can't rent an apartment on minimum wage. An apartment is $1,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in our region. And at $15 an hour, using the metric that HUD uses for housing, you have about $725 a month for your housing. You can't rent a doghouse for that. So the bottom line is the problem is not going to be solved by government. We can only do a patchwork on the low end of the housing needs for people. The final analysis, it takes an economy that provides a middle-class living for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you both for the time and energy that you put into these last few questions. With that, we're going to open it to the floor. I would encourage the attendees to please use the chat feature for questions that you would like to have answered, or the Q&A feature. The first, it's a semi-question, semi-statement. Lisa Holm, I believe this is directed toward Mark Scholl. Speaking transportation and infrastructure, I appreciate the sentiments, although my road has not been paved since 1971. It's a horrible disaster with rocks damaging vehicles. I have discussed this with Ken, but would appreciate another view. I don't feel the neighborhood roads in Clackamas County are looked after well at all.
Well, okay. Transportation, arterial lanes are a primary concern of the people of Clackamas County. People of Clackamas County are not interested in paying for another max line. So our roads need to be a priority in their maintenance. And to do that, what we need to look at is where are the maintenance dollars going that come in from the gas tax, that come in from the VRF, that come in from other taxes. And we need to ensure that those dollars are in fact going to fixing our roads. And that's something that I want to look into and find out exactly where are all those millions of gas tax dollars going to. Because the caller is right. She has a right to have roads that are drivable. And we need to get that done.
Thank you. Commissioner, if you'd like to comment.
I would. That is precisely the reason we passed the VRF, because we did not have sufficient funds to do all of the roads that need to be done. And quite frankly, even with the VRF, we still don't have enough money. Again, we have more road miles than any other county in the state. That's why we passed the VRF. There are 25 projects currently being done on top of 50 others as a direct result of the state increases and our increases. And her roads in her neighborhood, that is precisely why we're having to do this, because they were not being fixed. So there are roads in the rural areas that I could point to, like Upper Highland Road that's having work being done, like Caris Road that's having work being done, and there are others that I've gone out to those sites. I can assure you that the money is being spent precisely where it is supposed to be spent, because by constitutional law in Oregon, VRF monies and gas tax monies must be spent on the roads. They cannot be spent on anything else, and they are not. Conversely, your property tax dollars cannot be spent on the roads. Most people don't realize that. I don't get to take that property tax money that you pay, that 18.63 cents that we get, and spend it on roads. We're not allowed to do that. It is not, as I said before, this is not a great big bucket that we get to spend any way we want. Most of the funding that we have, regardless of where it comes from, the majority of it is in very specific silos. And quite frankly, that's a good thing. Because can you imagine a county government where you had $1.2 billion that you could spend any old way you pleased with no guidelines, rules, or regulation on how you spend it? That's why all of those rules and regulations are in place, is to make sure that elected officials spend it as the taxpayers intended it to be spent. And I would make one correction. The voters never had an opportunity to vote on the vehicle registration fee. They voted on gas taxes 7 times and did not pass one. The state law allows the county commission to raise the VRF a very limited amount, and we raised it about half of that limited amount to do the projects that we are doing.
Thank you both. The next question is from Brett Sherman. Doesn't a county commissioner serve his or her constituents by understanding how to work with the overlapping jurisdictions to achieve the best results for the public? How would you actively work to create a mutually beneficial relationship with the governor, metro, and state leadership, both D's and R's? Commissioner, do you want to start with that one?
Certainly. Before I came on board, our relationship with our neighbors, including and especially Metro, was, shall we say, controversial at best. And that particular year that I ran for this office, $4 million worth of grant funding was being passed out by Metro to the counties. And Clackamas County got none. And the reason that we got none is we essentially tried to point the finger at Metro and make them the bad guy every time we turned around because it was politically expedient. That doesn't work. There are a lot of people who may not be happy with Metro or like Metro or wish Metro would go away, but as a county commissioner, that's not my job. The courts have already ruled 30 years ago that the only way we get out of Metro is if the public votes on it. And that means the public in all of the Metro region, not just in Clackamas County. So my job as county commissioner is to build a relationship with Metro that brings resources from Metro into Clackamas County. And we've been able to do that. Every grant request that we have made, we have received in the last 4 years. Commissioner Bernard working with Metro on this Metro transportation bill, if it passes, and that, by the way, is not a county tax, that is a Metro bond request. If that passes, they were not going to spend any money on the Sunrise Corridor, an important priority for our business community and housing in Clackamas County. He's got allocated $180 million towards that project. That will not complete it, but it'll take it the next step. That happened because we've developed working relationships with them. I don't opine on whether or not they are great people, good or bad, whether they should or shouldn't exist. My job as a commissioner has been figuring out how do I cooperate with them to bring resources into Clackamas County that benefit the citizens of Clackamas County. And getting into a cat fight with them is absolutely a waste of the taxpayers' time, energy, effort, and money.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Mark Scholl, to repeat the question, I won't read the full thing, but it's with overlapping jurisdictions, how do we achieve the best results for the public? How would you actively work to create a mutually beneficial relationship with the governor, metro, and state leadership, both D's and R's?
Every level of government, to include Metro, they have their own interests and visions of the future. The people of Clackamas County, they own Clackamas County. They live here. It's their land. They own homes and property here. They have their businesses here. There's no one in Clackamas County who has more interest in the future of this county than the people and the businesses that are here. So I always step up and think about what their interests are first. Now, Metro, for example, has got a vision of the future. That is different than most of the people and the businesses in this county when you talk to them. So somebody's got to stand up for the people of this county and push back when it's time to push back against what Metro wants, even what the governor wants. For example, here we've seen in this last year, the governor package our county with Multnomah County and Washington County for the COVID recovery thing, where our metrics have been different than those two counties. And so I am not about getting up every morning and getting into a fight. I like to work with people. I like to compromise at times, but I will not compromise the interest of the people of Clackamas County over an outside interest at any time. I'm not going to do it. People of Clackamas County are my responsibility, and I'm going to live up to it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very specific question to West Lynn. The crosswalks, the crosswalks at 10th Street have been replaced and reworked multiple times. How do we stop frivolous projects?
Is that for me?
Mark, if you're comfortable starting, please.
Okay. Okay, like my opponent has already said, money for transportation and infrastructure there's not enough of it. So what do we ask the people to tell us in terms of what they want? And they'll tell us they want arterial lanes. Now we've seen a lot of money being spent on like for example, on 212, and the example that the caller just gave, for new sidewalks. We've got nothing against it, but we're seeing money spent on sidewalks along 212, for example. And as people drive by and they're in the daily traffic pile up there on 212 going through Damascus, for example, they're asking themselves, why is all that money being spent on sidewalks where we're out here in the country when we need arterial lanes? So I hope that answers your caller's question. We need to prioritize what we're doing and spending money on improvements on roads, and those monies need to go to new arterial lanes to shorten our commute time for our people.
Thank you. Commissioner, if you'd like to comment on that, it's the crosswalks at 10th Street and West Lynn have been replaced or reworked multiple times. How do we stop frivolous projects?
Well, I can't comment on the 10th Street thing without having actually been there and seen what the caller is talking about. I'm not familiar with it. I could say that if it's inside the city limits, it's obviously not the county's project. If it's not inside the city limits, then I would have to look at it and I'd have to talk to our transportation department. If it has to do with a state highway, then again, those are funds that come from the state. I will tell you that again, because funds tend to be siloed and specified as to how they can be spent from the source, that it may well be, using the example of 212, that there were certain funds specifically for the purpose of sidewalks on 212. I don't know that for a fact, but that may well be the case. Again, we don't get large buckets of money that we just get to spend any way we see fit. I don't disagree that we need more arterials, again, because Clackamas County commutes to work a great deal. There's no question about that. And we have fought long and hard for those things. Any implication that Clackamas County is not first and foremost in my approach in dealing with any other government agency would be incorrect. It is my primary responsibility, and I have done the best I can to live up to that and make sure that in working with these other government agencies, resources are brought back to this county.
Thank you both. The next question is from Charles Gallia. Any thoughts on relocating the Metro train station?
I believe Metro is actually working on that project as we speak. I don't know that they have actually located a place yet, but it has outgrown its usefulness in its current location. I don't know the status of that at this point in time. That's a question I would direct to Metro and a Metro counselor. Which I would like to share one thing that most people are not aware of, and I learned this myself. We are the only Metro region in which the citizens elect the Metro counselors in the country. Every other jurisdiction that has a Metro region, they're appointed, usually by a governor. We elect ours. And if we don't like the ones we have, we can unelect them. Just as we can do with county commissioners or city councilors or school board members or anything else. So we are a little different in this region because we actually choose the people who run Metro. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Shaw, would you like to comment on any thoughts on relocating the Metro transfer station?
You know, Nellie, I'm sorry, but I can't really speak to that. I'll have to do some looking into that, and tell your caller, send me an email. I'll do some research on it, and I'll send them an answer. But right now, I don't have an answer for you, Nellie.
That's all right. Thank you. Moving on, we've had some very big projects facing the county with both the building of a new courthouse and the need for I-205 expansion. It's kind of a broad, open-ended question on my part, but just wanted to touch base with both of you and see what path forward you see for both of those projects. Commissioner, do you want to start?
Certainly. So on the I-205, I'll be candid, I don't support tolling. It's a federal freeway. It should be paid for by the expansion should be paid for by the federal government, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that my opinion will hold sway, quite frankly, because it's going to be up to the state government and ODOT to make that decision. So that would be where I am on the I-205. No question that needs to be done, but I believe it's a funding problem for the federal government, and I have shared that with our federal representatives on more than one occasion. With respect to the courthouse plan has been on the books since 1998. That's 22 years. It's part of the master plan for the Red Soils campus. The original courthouse was built around 1936 when we had 40,000 people and one courthouse and one court, and the county officers were there. Now we have a courthouse that's within 3 feet of falling into the river. It has unsafe air. It has 11 courts in it, and then all the other court services scattered throughout multiple buildings throughout the city of Oregon City. It has far outlived its usefulness. The state has indicated for the cost of that building, they will give us 50% of that money. That's about $96 million of the taxpayers' money coming back home. We would be fiscally irresponsible, given the need of that building, to turn that down, because the building does need to be replaced. We have literally had to shut it down for bad air purposes. And finally, I'll share with you what happens in that courthouse. Someone can come in there who's been the victim of a crime and be sitting in the hallway right outside a courtroom waiting their turn. And the person who victimized them can be sitting 5 feet away from them across the hallway waiting for their trial. Imagine yourself as a woman who has been victimized, and the person who victimized them, maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's a stranger, sitting across from you before you go into that courtroom. Not only is that intimidating, it's unsafe and it's inappropriate. In my career in law enforcement, that simply is not the way things can or should be done, and that needs to change. I can finally tell you that the building infrastructure for the courthouse is already in place at the Red Soil campus, because previous commissions wisely, when they built the Red Soil campus, included the underground infrastructure that would be necessary for a courthouse once the time came to build it. And finally, we will be able to fund this through a public-private partnership that will not require us to go to the taxpayer and ask the taxpayer for more money. As we defease the current debt that we have, which is only about 4% of our budget, we will use those funds to pay for the construction of the courthouse. If we do it as a public-private partnership, the necessity of managing that building's facilities will be off the backs of the taxpayers for 30 years. because that will be part of how we build the building. So this is a project that is needed. It has been planned for, and it can be 50% of it almost can be funded by taxpayer dollars coming back into Clackamas County. And I think that that is a responsible approach. And I would point out the incoming chair back in 2014 or 2015, when there was a review of the master plan, was in support of the courthouse and is quoted as saying, "We do not want to see judges swimming in the river if the courthouse falls into it."
Thank you. Mark, I'll pass the mic off to you.
Okay.
I was just going to say the question was about I-205, the project for expansion, as well as the courthouse, how you would propose moving forward on both of those.
On I-205, I support improvements of our arterials. They're very important. But we need to work with our federal and state agencies to get that done. I agree with Commissioner Humbertson. Tolling is not the way to do it. On the courthouse, my concern is that the monies that the state has promised to be put forth for the construction of the courthouse, I don't think there's any guarantees that that's actually going to come. You know, this year and COVID has done such a disaster on revenues that are going to be coming into the state and the county next year. I'm not so sure that money is going to come through. So I'm very concerned about pushing off on a project where the funding for it is not really a for sure thing. Yes, the old courthouse is showing its age, but I'm not convinced that this is the time or the year to be working on that project. If we can afford it in the future, okay. In the meantime, there are things we can do to alleviate pressure on the old courthouse by setting up courtrooms and other locations, and we need to do that.
Well, thank you both. We have time for one more question, and then we'll do closing statements for both of you. What is your position on equity and inclusion? Will you prioritize equity, and how? One of you would like to start off on that. I'll let you decide.
Nellie, I don't understand the question. You're talking about equity and inclusion. Are you talking about people, races? What are we talking about here?
The whole movement for equity and inclusion in the workplace. So I know it's been a very big thing that businesses have been working on in the recent years. All people really is what we're talking about, the inclusion of all people and being involved in decision making. There, words will come to me eventually.
So
the question is, what is your position on equity and inclusion, and will you prioritize equity of all people in the county commission, and how?
Okay, well, I think I understand the question. Let me take a crack at it. All people have a right to respect. They have a right to access to the workplace, to jobs, and to be treated fairly, irregardless of race or creed. And if we're going to have America last, we need to respect that. All people need to be respected. Sex, gender, race. I look at everybody as Americans, everybody as having the right to be respected, to have equal access to the workplace and jobs. Does that help? Does that answer the question?
I think that's great. Thank
Okay.
you. Commissioner Humbertson, what is your position on equity and inclusion, and will you prioritize equity, and how?
Well, unequivocally, yes, I prioritize that. 2 years ago, in the course of developing long-term goals and objectives, one of the things that we did was decide that we were going to look at the things that we do through an equity lens as part of how we look at everything that we do. To that end, we have hired an equity, diversity, and inclusion director and staffed the office for the first time. We had a director before, but didn't really staff it. So we are now staffing that. I've personally had conversations with our LGBTQ community, especially after we let go our first equity, diversity, and inclusion manager. And I made it very clear that what I'm looking for as a county commissioner is the best talent that I can find working for Clackamas County. I don't care what their race, their ethnicity is, what their gender identity is, or any of the rest of it. I want the talent working for the citizens of Clackamas County. I want them to feel valued, welcomed, and when people come into our offices, I want them to see themselves across the counter, which means we need to be open to hiring everybody, regardless of their background, as long as they have the skills and talents necessary to make Clackamas County a better place. It's really very simple. I think the Constitution applies to everybody, without exception.
Well, thank you both for answering all these questions and being very civil toward each other. I really appreciate that, especially in this crazy political world we're in. With that, we're at our time, but I'd like to give you both just a minute to do your closing remarks, and we'll let everyone move on. Commissioner, would you like to start?
Okay. About 5.5 years ago, I decided to run for this position because I felt that there were things that were not being handled properly. I saw what I considered to be very disrespectful behavior on the county commission between commissioners, to the staff, and to the general public. And I thought, given my background in this, that was absolutely inappropriate. The public does not want us to behave that way. So that was one of the impetuses for me to run for this job. In that 18-month period of time, I went to literally hundreds of community meetings and places, met with everybody that I possibly could, and attended many of the county commission meetings, both the work sessions as well as the regular commission meetings. I can't say that I was there every single week, but I was there a whole heck of a lot of them, because I felt that if I did win this job, I needed to know what we were working on and what direction we would be going, and have some idea of how things worked internally. I believe I've lived up to my commitment. I believe that government that doesn't work together doesn't work. And so building relationships with our cities, patching up the disagreements that we did have, resolving lawsuits, building a working relationship with Metro to bring resources here, building a working relationship with the state legislature, which has also brought resources into Clackamas County, was critically important, and we've been successful in doing that. We've also been willing to make the hard decisions, such as the VRF, and I don't back away from it 1 inch. I have told more than one person that if that single issue is enough for you to decide you don't want to vote for me, that's perfectly okay. You have every right to do that. But I'm going to make the best decisions I can for the benefit of Clackamas County, and not worry about whether or not I get a vote or don't get a vote for. I've continued to meet with people around the county, probably attending well over 100 different community meetings of one kind or another, to listen to what they want, get answers to their questions, and help them get things done in their communities. But I'd like to share a couple of personal things. One in particular recently that really is what makes this job worthwhile. I received a phone call from a lady who has 8 children. She lives in a very rural area. She had one of those little card devices that you can use to get internet from through your telephone, and it was simply insufficient for her children to get an education. When 4 of them would get online, the system would crash. She needed high-speed internet. I got with our technology folks. They got with SandyNet, and 2 days later, they flew a drone, found a pathway, put a box on a tree, dropped a line to her house, and now she's able to get high-speed internet to her kids so they can get an education while currently they can't go to school because of the COVID situation. Those small things are what makes this job worthwhile. And the opportunity to make something like that happen makes a difference in one individual's life, and I think that that's important. If I am reelected, I intend to continue to function the way I have, listen, learn, and solve problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Mark, would you like to give some closing remarks?
Yes, thank you. This is a time in the history of Clackamas County when we must look at the direction that the county is going in. We need to make a course change, and that change, once again, needs to be focused on the families, the working people, and the businesses of this county. And I want to see less attention to outside interests, less attention to Metro. I don't want to have Clackamas County associated with Multnomah County. We are our own county. Decisions must be made in the best interest of our people. And in the primary election for the chair, we saw a change. The people are looking for that very change in focus in the county. Now here we are down to the race for position 4. My opponent has been very loyal to the people who have supported him and endorsed him. But my loyalty is only to the people, the 430,000 people of Clackamas County. If elected as your commissioner, those people will have absolute transparency with me. My phone's right there. Everybody can give me a call. I will answer their questions. I will be responsible to them first and foremost. Thank you, Nellie, for your time today. Commissioner Humberson, thank you very much for your time in this debate. I appreciate it very much. And to the people of Clackamas County, God bless you. Don't forget to vote.
Thank you all. Thank you both for joining us, for having a very civil discussion. Appreciate you both running for this position. And yes, last but not least, vote. Thank you, everyone. Stay well.
Going out to mow the grass. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye.